What is going on, you guys? I'm not gonna say I'm anything other than a messy ass woman because I am a mess. But tonight I reacted to the vice presidential debate, even if it was a mess. I gotta hurry and edit this because God, mommy's running on little sleep, and that's the biggest reason I didn't get up my Madonna Monday video. I'm gonna have right here the vlog I uploaded on Sunday where a homeless woman grabbed my face and tried to get me to kiss her. The vlog, guys, it's not doing very well, which does make me tear up on the toilet and cry because it is honestly my funniest video. It's the craziest video. Like a stabbing almost happens on the bus. A homeless lady tried kissing me. There's so many crazy instances. The woman, God bless her soul, was a fucking lunatic. Ha! It's really funny. Please check it out if you haven't. And I reacted to the vice presidential debate, and honestly, it wasn't like a slam dunk win like I was really hoping it would be because I love Tim Walz. What a great teacher, a coach, a fucking veteran. I mean, the list is very expansive on why he is just a top notch, amazing pick. He speaks well. He presents himself with he's just calming and easy to listen to, and he's an intellectual. He's a person and he's a human being, and I love that. And from a small town of 400 people, my small town was like 1,000 people, so mine was a little bigger, but it was still tiny. So I can relate to him, love him. Here's my reaction to the debate. I love you. I'm also really sorry for not getting a Madonna Monday video up. I recorded it. It'll be up next week. I'm like negative $100 in my bank account right now, so I'm having a hard time. I just paid rent and like barely. As you can see, I have literally just said I'm negative $100 in my bank account. Things are tough, but the best days are coming. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. My best content is going to continue coming. I'm going to be going to First Friday this month for the first time. I'm going to rant, and if you listen, I'm so sorry, or I'm thankful, but I'm so sorry. First Friday is this thing. Every first Friday of every month, Vegas does this thing like where it's like a little celebration thing. I've never gone, and I'm 25, and I first moved to Vegas when I was 18. Have I never been to one? I don't know because it literally happens every month. But I'm gonna probably do that this Friday. That's gonna be fun. I'm excited. So that'll probably be my vlog this Sunday. Please check that out. And like I said again, if you missed the vlog from this last Sunday, please check it out. It's a crazy video. And honestly, I'll even have a little bit play right here. It's a crazy video, guys. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll see you all in this fucking reaction, in this debate reaction. I love you. My God. I don't want to sound weird, guys. I'm not trying to be weird because I'm not trying to be like Donald Trump and JD Pantsless on the couch Vance. I'm not trying to be like those weirdos. But hello, I'm so excited. This really could be a telling moment in history. It really could. And we're going to engage in some historical context and we're going to enjoy this vice presidential debate. So please tell me, are you excited? I don't want to sound, like I said, I don't want to sound like a dork, but I cannot wait. I cannot wait. This is honestly a little, almost a little more exciting than even the Donald Trump debate because Donald Trump, he just mumbles crazy weird shit. But like, at least Donald Trump has that like, oh, but I'm like, he's like comedic because he's funny and old and gross. JD Vance is just disgusting. So I'm just like, I cannot fucking wait to watch this motherfucker get served and fed and spoon fed a reality check because it's what he needs. He's a low life. But hello, everyone. How are we feeling? Let me post that we're live. Let me tweet out the stream. Let me do all that good shit. We're live. We're live. We're live. I don't know. I don't even know if anyone is here. I don't think anyone is. That's okay. I'm getting ready. I haven't streamed in a minute. I think since the, but is that true? No, that's not true. I streamed recently. I don't know. I don't know, guys. Regardless, I'm excited. Let's have a blast, and let's switch on over. Hello. Here we go. Aw, and thank you to Deanna for the 3 gifted subs last time I streamed.
Here is your reminder. Watch Couch Lover J.D. Pants and Tim Walz debate.
JD Pants. Watch Couch Lover. That's hilarious. He is a couch lover. Hello, Savannah. How are you?
Here is your reminder. Watch Couch Lover J.D. Pants and Tim Walz debate.
This is gonna be so good. I'm so excited, Savannah. I cannot wait.
We'll see. Okay, coming up, we head to another battleground state, Michigan, to find out what's on voters' minds there. You are watching CBS News coverage of the
CBS News coverage of the vice presidential debate. I still can't believe that Pussy Boy Donald Trump literally refused to do another debate. And then encourages people to vote early. You know why? Because he doesn't want negative shit to happen.
Is this rich?
But we're gonna find out negative shit, I guarantee. Oh, I don't want to listen to this ad. Lots of weird shit going on is all mommy can say. Lots of really strange things at the same time. I'm excited and I hope that everyone else is. Hello. Hello. Savannah, how are you doing, sweetheart? I hope that you're doing good, babe. I'm watching this on Paramount Plus. I'm not sure if I should watch it on Paramount Plus or like if I should do YouTube. Part of me thinks I should do YouTube. Yeah, but also I don't know if it's. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, honestly, part of me wants to watch it on YouTube. I think it makes
State Farm was charging me.
I think it makes more sense. Because then we don't have to watch these shitty weirdo ads. Like I like that I have Paramount Plus, but I honestly don't actually.
It's so simple too. All you have to do is go to the site, put some basic.
I'll subscribe to CBS, sure.
And most of the time, people save right away. You gotta check it out. It's amazing. The site's right here. Click it.
Oh my God.
Why you still listen to me? Go to the site.
Hello, Karen. How are you? Hi, babe. Karen says, "Hey, girl. Hey." Hello. Karen, thank you so much for being here. My life as a streamer.
Run your life.
Oh, my life as a streamer, it doesn't really exist anymore. So genuinely, thank you for being here, babe. It means so much. I was gonna watch this on Paramount Plus, but I don't want to watch shitty ads. At least I can skip them on YouTube.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be
Honestly, the ads are better on YouTube. Even if this is weird. Living the dream. Hello, Karen. That's beautiful. Thank fuck. I'm not, but I'm glad that at least one of us is. Haha.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
I am so excited for this debate. And I honestly am. I'm praying that Tim Walz delivers the way that I genuinely believe he will. Hello, Var. How are you, my dear? Avar, are you excited? I'm excited. I got a whole snack box right here. Wow. And hello, Kim. How are you, sweetheart? Guys, I got some Cheez-Its I'm ready to snack on. We're gonna vibe. This is gonna be a vibe. I cannot wait to watch this debate. Oh my God. But hello, Kim. Hello, Var. Hello, Karen. Hello, Savannah. How are you guys? He's cute. I don't know. I can't remember what his name is. He's a homo, right? Maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember him. I just remember the face. I think he's pretty. But he could be a breeder, for all I know. Let's be honest. I'm really not that sure. Streaming on Paramount Plus. I have Paramount Plus, but I thought it'd be better to watch it on YouTube. Honestly. I originally had it opened on Paramount, but I said I don't want to watch this because there's weirdo ads.
Electoral votes are part of the blue wall, the states that Democrats like to think are firmly in their camp. But in 2016, they thought that too, and Donald Trump became the first Republican to win there in nearly 30
Hello,
years.
Dark Chop. How are you, babe? Hello. How are you, Ash? Hope you're having a great night, sweetheart.
Good evening, Jerika.
Hi, sweetheart. Hello.
Good evening to you. Good evening to everyone. You know, Kent County is where we're at here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's a very important county when you look at the numbers. And by that, I mean that this county has picked the winner of the presidential election 3 times out of the 4 last presidential elections. So joining me is this lovely group. They all say they watch CBS, so we love that.
Here we
but
go,
show
ladies.
of hands, briefly, how many of you guys are leaning or planning to vote for Harrison Walz? So we have 2. How many are planning to vote for Trump and J.D. Vance? And then there's 2 left that are undecided. So a CBS News
How could you be
poll
undecided?
shows us that people are watching this debate because they want to hear more about these candidates. What specifically are you looking for, Bill? And I'm going to start with you because you voted for Trump in 2016.
We call him Tampon
You
Tim.
didn't vote at all in 2020. And here you are today.
Can I be honest? I really
trying to
hope he
figure out
says
who
something
exactly
outlandish
you're
like
gonna
that.
vote for.
I
So
really
what are
hope
you
he
looking
does.
for?
I'm looking for a good economy.
A good economy.
Yep. Safety.
Safety.
Yeah.
And Eric, what about you?
Oh my God,
I mean,
Kim, the
economy is
VP is
extremely important.
Tim Walz,
Safety
great
as well.
guy.
I have
JD
2
Vance
daughters.
from
I'm
Ohio,
a
and he's a
business
low
owner,
life.
So both of those things are very important to
This
me
is
as well.
crazy.
I would say the economy is the main priority for me right now.
And Christina, I see you have your notepad, so you are prepared. You are ready to take notes.
Aw.
I agree. The economy and the what was the other thing we were talking about? There were 2 things: the economy,
Safety,
and safety. Oh yeah, crime. Mm-hmm.
I know that you're also a voter that was leaning more toward Nikki Haley at one point. That's correct?
No.
Oh, you weren't. Okay, that was Holly.
That was me.
I'm so sorry. There's so many notes that go out. Well, Ellie, let's go back to you then, because I think it's interesting.
Oh, this bitch not knowing anything what's going on.
Decision, you're
What?
looking at this debate while so many people already know who
How did
they're
nobody
going to
prep
vote
her?
for. You were looking at Nikki Haley as someone that you were really considering, but you're a bit torn. So is there something that these candidates could say or do that would clarify where they stand on any position, or have you feel more confident in who you're going to vote for when you leave today?
Yeah, I think the 3 most important things to me in this election are definitely inflation, abortion rights, and then also gun control.
Absolutely,
I agree, my 2
abortion
little
rights.
kids,
How could you consider
and they're
Trumpty
going to school,
Dumpty,
so that's
girl?
starting to be a little scary now.
And Max, what about you? You have 3 children. You're planning to vote for Trump and Vance.
Why?
Talk to us about why, and what are you hoping to get out of this debate tonight?
I'm really interested to see both Vance and Walz's viewpoints. My biggest concerns and focus points for this election is the economy,
I'm so scared.
immigration, and a strong foreign policy, kind of shore up some of, our
I am
involvements
literally
overseas
so
and bring it
afraid.
back home and get, us squared away here.
And that's what we've heard time and time again, even in our polling: the economy, safety, immigration. These are issues that a lot of Americans care about. Our job is always to make sure we reveal America to itself. So we thank you guys for joining us tonight to help let people see, regardless of how they feel. This is kind of a taste of what voters are thinking and feeling in this state of Michigan, which we know will be very important in this election. So we'll send it back to you guys, and we'll check in with you a little bit later.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere. We're going to be checking in with you all evening, Jerika. Thank you. Ed Gordon, I want to bring you back in. You've got an important perspective in this because you live outside of Detroit, and we know the suburbs of Detroit, this election in particular, are expected to play a very important role. Given the breaking news that we are watching unfold in the Middle East right now, Vice President Kamala Harris is facing significant questions about.
And with how old
policy
Donald
in
Trump
Israel
is
and
of
how
our
and whether she will
motherfucker
differ,
croak.
very much
Let's
from
be
President
honest. And
Biden.
also,
What would
hello,
you think
Deanna.
when
Oh
you're
my God.
talking to your neighbors
How are you,
and
babe?
voters in this
Why is
area
this
on
not
this
full
front?
screen?
It's interesting. I'm a Midwesterner,
Fuck.
born and raised in Detroit, and today's escalation in the Middle East can prove crucial to this state. There is a large Arab population outside of Detroit in Dearborn. They have not been happy with many administrations, not just the Biden administration, but administrations previous. They don't see a balanced view from the White House as relates to Israel and their positions. And so what we're seeing today is going to be unique in terms of whether or not this group can, in fact, be energized, whether they will in fact, throw their weight behind Kamala Harris. That was the thought early on, but there has not been a clear path to her because of that.
Yeah, I think the question is whether they show up, right, on Election Day.
I was recently in Dearborn, talked to several voters on this very question. This was before what the administration would argue is a clarifying moment, Iran attacking Israel. That takes away some of the obscurity of, is it a militia or what is happening in the region around? It's now
Hello,
Iran,
Sky.
Israel.
And Audrey, I
Harris
hope you
hopes
feel
that
better
that
too, babe.
clarifies thing that Israel must
Sorry you have a
defend
headache.
itself and must be supported. There will
So
be a
sorry,
competition
sweetheart.
on the debate stage
But
tonight.
hello, Sky. How
about
are you, sweetheart?
unequivocal support and the strength of that message
Hello.
delivered by both Walz and Vance. They will be testing each other on that very screen.
This is
And
going to
very
be
quickly,
probably
if you remember the
wild.
primaries,
Couch
that,
Lover. And if you
group
guys are wondering why I have Couch
decided
Lover
to
in the
withhold
title,
their votes.
JD
They wanted
Vance
to
is
send a
like
message.
rumored
We'll
to
see if
fuck
that was heard.
couches. Who knows
Yeah,
if that's true?
circumstances
Probably
change
not.
things.
But I will
Both
still
very
call him a
much.
couch
When we
fucker.
come back, childcare is
Weirdo.
expensive, housing is
The
expensive.
freak.
Those are just two of the issue areas we'll look
What
at
a
as we
weird
examine
fuck.
where the two
And hello,
candidates stand
Sims
on
4.
everyday costs.
That's awesome, Sky. Sims 4 is the only Sims game I could never fuck with. I don't know what it was. I just didn't like it as much as I loved the Sims tree. Kim says, I doubt that's true. Kim, wait till you see this guy. You might not doubt it when he's a freak. He's a couch fucker. He is a couch fucker.
Washington
And
is the
hello,
seat of
Deanna.
power, a
Gifting a
national
sky
security,
to
foreign
Sky.
policy, global
Aww,
economics.
giving a
Every
sky.
story
Giving a
comes
sub
through
to
Washington
Sky.
in some way.
But hey, you got
We
Sky's
bring some of the
emoji
most
next to your
powerful
name now,
voices
Sky.
in America
Hello.
to the table.
Thank
We
you,
don't
Deanna. I
just
love you
ask
so
the
much, babe.
questions, you have to go deeper. We try
Also,
to
Deanna, I had you on
understand
the
what's at
screen at
heart
the beginning of the stream
issue
for
we're
the
talking about,
3
to
subs
then
you
come
gifted
forward
last
with
time I streamed.
solutions.
Thank you so
Face the
much.
Nation on CBS.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Huge thank you,
The justices
too.
ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an
Oh
equal
my
opportunity.
God.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what
I'm
it means for those
afraid.
chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
God, I fucking hate ads, dude. Like, I watch this shit, but Jesus fuck.
Break this cycle. The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say
to those
in your party? Any cracks in the Republican Party? Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions. What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into
How is
our
immigration a big thing when Donald Trump literally stopped an immigration bill that would have stopped the issue we have at the border? What the fuck?
You decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
So gross.
Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
And aw, congrats, Kim, 10 pounds. Hello, that's awesome, babe.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases.
It's so scary.
Breakthroughs.
We love AI, but I'm afraid of her a little too.
medical discovery, scientific
I'm a
discoveries,
little
doing
scared.
better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7
Aw.
that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
Oh my god, he's like, girl, let me see your pussy. That's what he says to her. Oh my god.
The choices we make now will have
That is
lasting
scary,
effects
dude.
for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT
That really is
revolution,
scary.
now streaming on the free CBS News app.
He literally says to her, let me see your cooter.
American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
What?
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most
An
Americans
NRA loving Trump fuck isn't gonna do anything about it, you dumb fuck.
the enemy next door.
This is the
Oh
story
my
America
god.
needed to know.
Arming.
Literally, how is that possible? How do we have ads on YouTube and then also in this video itself? What the hell?
But also lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Oh my god, Sky, that's hilarious.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Ads are always on YouTube. I could block them, but I honestly like my reaction to them usually. Here we go. 14 minutes, babe. I cannot even believe this.
All right, the economy has been and it continues to be the #1 issue for voters heading into this election.
Right.
A recent CBS News poll shows that voters are feeling better about the economic climate as gas prices and interest rates have dropped, but 59% say the economy is still in bad shape. Senior
Right.
business and technology correspondent Jolene Kent has been digging into both campaigns' plans to tackle these high prices of housing, childcare, and basic costs. Jolene, good evening. So what do you expect to hear tonight from Senator Vance and Governor Walz on their plans to tackle these high prices?
Cecilia, great to see you. Get ready to hear a lot about the economy and the cost of living. You can expect Senator Vance to continue to hammer Harris and Walz on inflation. And our math using government data shows that grocery prices are up 21% since Biden and Harris took office, even though they have leveled out lately and wage growth has been keeping pace with inflation. You can expect Vance to hit on Trump's proposed 20% tariff on imported goods, even though economists estimate that the Trump tariff proposals would cost the typical middle-income household at least $1,700 more a year. And Walz will likely play up Harris's federal ban on price gouging, though keep in mind,
I
neither
honestly like the
campaign
ads
has
bar
really
only
offered
because it makes
much
me laugh
specifics
when
on
I
how
respond
they're actually going to
ridiculously, which I do
implement and
often.
carry out these proposed policies, Cecilia.
Yeah, still waiting for a lot of details on that one. As we are talking right now, shipping has been brought to a halt along so much of the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico as a result, of course, of this port strike that we've been following. How much do you expect that to impact prices in the coming weeks and days?
Look, it's at least 25,000 union dock workers at 14 ports from Houston to Boston. They walked off the job last night at midnight, right? And according to JP Morgan Chase, the strike could cost the economy up to $5 billion a day. And economists worry that a longer strike would disrupt the supply chain on everything from your perishable foods to cars and construction materials. But we also know that things like fuels for home heating oil, for example, diesel gas, those are actually transported in ways that are not expected to be impacted by the strike. And according to the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, there's no need to be, running and panicking and going to the grocery store and stockpiling goods as you might have done, during the pandemic.
Sure, still these concerns coming just 5 weeks out from this election. But the other top issue on the campaign trail, how much families are struggling to cover the cost of childcare. This has been a big one in terms of talking points. Senator Vance made some headlines recently over his suggestion that grandparents should be more involved.
Yeah, Cecilia, this caught the attention of a lot of parents of young kids. This is the care economy, right? It's been a central talking point for both Vance and Walz. But here's the brutal reality. The cost of childcare is rising faster than inflation. It's almost double the rate of inflation. Both of these candidates have said they support permanently expanding the child tax credit. Harris and Walz have also said federal paid family leave would be an important priority here if they win. But again, few specifics on how long it should be. And we do know that Vance told our colleague Margaret Brennan back in August that he supports an expanded child tax credit,
I am so
expanded
scared.
child care options for families beyond preschool and daycare.
And
That
yeah,
grandparents'
hello,
comment
Ash.
certainly striking
I
a
love you,
chord,
babe. Hope you're having a great night.
saying aunts and uncles should be helping out more too, Cecilia.
Yeah, Jolene, I was really struck by this next one on housing. A CBS News poll found that half of Americans aged 30 to 64, they are not confident that they will ever reach the American dream of being able to own a home. What are the campaigns promising to change that?
Cecilia, look, you've got the Fed cutting interest rates last month, right? And you've got more Americans who want to get back into the housing market. So it's kind of encouraging to see. But Vice President Harris has now proposed
Hello, Var. Thank you, babe.
down payment assistance program for
$1 in Twitch biddies.
buyers.
Thank you.
She's also proposing
Thank
a
you,
tax
sweetheart.
incentive for builders of starter
Thank
homes,
you,
which are in
thank
short
you.
supply, to help tackle this supply problem, which has basically plagued our
Yeah,
country
babe, I'm
for
literally
more
like
than a
negative
decade and a
$100
half
in
now.
my bank account. Thank you
This
so much.
depends, again,
You
on
and Deanna, thank you
congressional
both. Thank you,
approval.
thank you.
It depends on the type of implementation.
Block, guys.
And former President Trump has proposed changing regulations, making federal land available for housing, but he hasn't offered many details on that front. And he's also said he wants to deport 15 to 20 million undocumented workers who he is blaming for increasing housing demand, something that Senator Vance says he supports. But mass deportation could also impact the workforce needed to build homes here as well, Cecilia.
Yeah, and so many questions on how they and if they will actually be able to pull off that plan, Jolene.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Nancy, I want to ask you a quick question about this. The economy,
9 minutes. I'm
during the
so
pandemic
excited and a
compared
little
to how that
nervous.
has wrecked economies all over the world. The U.S. economy has bounced back. The recession never came. Inflation is coming down. The jobs numbers are good. Can the Harris campaign say any of that without looking out of touch? And are they in the same bind that Joe Biden was in when he was running?
I think Harris approaches it a little differently than Biden did. Biden really tried to thread the needle between, look how much I did to bring the economy back from the breach. Look at all the jobs that were created. Look how prices, or inflation at least, has come down. Look at this legislation that I passed.
And
yes,
Var, how sweet.
we need to do
I
more,
love you, babe. Thank
but
you.
I'm
Means
working
a lot,
on
guys,
it, and I've
genuinely.
got a record. Harris has really leaned into the notion that more needs to be done to help American families. She talks a lot about that. You heard Jo Ling just describing the assistance she wants to provide to first-time home buyers, the child tax credit, lots of different tax credits.
Hello,
And so,
Deanna.
there is some
20 months.
indication
Thank you, babe.
that approach,
Thank
along
you. I love you.
with interest rates coming down, along with gas prices
Thank
coming
you
down,
so much,
is starting
sweetheart.
to move the needle a little bit. Our polling shows that while Trump does still have an advantage on that big issue of the economy, that she's starting to inch closer and closer.
All right, Nancy, thank you. Guys, we are just minutes away from the
Minutes away from the vice president. I am
News.
so nervous. I am so fucking nervous. This is so important. Like this is probably one of the most important presidential debates because Don the Con, that little bitch boy, he literally refused to do another debate. So this is like the last thing we're gonna see from the campaigns, which is so important. It's so fucking important.
Progressively fallen deeper into
It's so scary too.
online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus
What?
with sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I use
Ooh.
sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left.
The
Self-destruction.
purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
What?
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends.
I call him Pumpkin Spice Hair. No, Donald Trump is the Orange Menace. He is repulsive.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Oh my god, I'm so nervous for this.
An original documentary from CBS.
Oh yeah, the knock usually never works. Of ours, it's very odd.
No police, no army, no mayor.
It's okay
The
though.
people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism,
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
they're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
As Trump and the couch fuckers say they're eating cats.
I will if you will.
Makes me sick.
That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
It's gonna be a
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
I got 5 minutes, guys. I cannot believe this.
Welcome back to the vice presidential debate coverage on CBS News. Our Ed O'Keefe is ensconced with all of our colleagues in the press corps over there in the room down the aisle from the actual debate location. Ed, we've seen major news the day of a debate before, and we're sure getting it today.
No, literally, Cam. It's like,
John,
just
you
start
remember
it,
back in
bitch.
2016
I'm
when you
excited.
hosted
I don't
the
want to wait 5
Republican
minutes.
presidential primary debate, and that morning, Antonin Scalia died.
Also, again,
Suddenly
thank
you
you
had
to
rip up all
both
the
Deanna and
questions
Avar for
focus on
the
future of
support
Supreme
tonight.
Court,
Means a
which
lot,
probably
guys.
hadn't been a top of mind
Means the
concern.
world to me.
Well, look at what's
Like I
happened
said,
in the last few
mommy's.
days. It's only October 1.
I think after
but in essence,
the
we've had
bank
some
charged me
surprises. The
overdraft fees, I'm
intensification
like
of
a
the
negative $100
situation
in
in
bank,
the Middle East,
genuinely,
major
thanks, guys.
storms
Means a lot.
ravaging the southeast that are now
I'm
going
a
to
messy
cause some
slut.
debate over spending and climate change. All of them a reminder that as president, whoever is president, faces all
But at
sorts
least
of
my rent's
unexpected
paid.
challenges that suddenly can prop
Even
up.
if it did.
And, it'll be interesting
me
to see
over a
tonight
little.
exactly how that factors in to the debate. Cecilia?
All right, Ed, you don't get to go anywhere. We're going to be checking back in with you when it is all over, and we are now just officially
Yeah, Deanna, it's
minutes
crazy,
away from the start
but
of this debate. I want to get your final thoughts, Major. I want to start
The good
with
news
you
about it is
because,
it,
we've been
at
saying
least I
so much
actually
is
like
on
I
the
think
line
now
tonight.
would get
How
$5.
much
Maybe
of
not though. I
tonight
don't think I
is
even
about
get
the
$5
audience
because
of
it's still
one for
50%
JD Vance?
A
goofy.
considerable amount. President Trump has expectations for JD Vance.
But oh my God, it's
Vance knows his
$7.99 now, so I
qualifications
gotta update the
so
total.
thoroughly laid out. At age 40, his entire
Right?
political career is ahead of him. If this ticket does not prevail, the Republican Party will find itself in an uncomfortable and unwelcome and unwanted post-Trump era. What role does JD Vance play in that? A
Would it be
considerable amount of that
$16.98,
decision
wouldn't
will
it?
be
I don't know how to do
drawn
math though,
from what he
guys.
does tonight. He knows that. In
I'm
contrast,
very dumb.
Governor Walz is 60, 1 year older than Kamala Harris. He does not have any obvious designs on the presidency if Kamala Harris wins and serves out 2 terms. He's there to enhance the ticket as it exists and amplify things on the positive side where and when he can. Very different calculations, very different risk factors for the two.
And Bob, even if you're Bob Dole, who had a bad
This
night
is
in
so
1976,
wild.
he was the nominee 20 years later for the Republican Party. So you can even rescue yourself from a bad night. What are your final thoughts on tonight?
Everybody in the press, when we're
Yeah,
in the press
Deanna, I'm honestly
galleries,
always
the
gonna forget
campaign
that. You're
plans,
gonna
they
have to
talk
remind
about
me
these
every time there's a gifted
vice
sub, because I
presidential
am.
debates as
I've been
low
doing
impact, but they really are
$4.99
high
for
stakes.
years. It's gonna
Everybody
take a
watching
minute. How
tonight
funny.
knows one of these two
How
men could
crazy.
become
They
president
raised it
of the United
$5
States.
or
The country's
$3.
going to take a temperature on character,
That's like
on policy.
insane.
Who are these people who might lead the country? And one of them might be leading the country should a crisis happen, a heartbeat away from the presidency. We live in a time of assassination attempts on the Republican nominee, of political violence, and of aging politicians.
But can we
So it's
emphasize
no
that it's Republicans that are trying to
question
kill him?
that one day
Hello?
these people could
Can
be
we
president.
acknowledge
We
that?
hope all people live healthy lives and
Holy
serve full
fuck.
terms, but you never know in American history. That's what the history always tells us.
Nancy, the other big event is these incredible floods in North
Right.
Carolina, which also is a platform for presidents.
It is, because handling of natural disasters is often a proxy for voters.
And yeah,
of
especially when I
confidence.
only
They
get
look
one
at
of
how
those
you
$2
handle something like
increases.
that, and
That's
they
the
say
sick
this
part.
person is
That's the
capable
sick
of
part, in
handling
my
big,
opinion. In my
important
opinion.
things. And that's why President Biden tomorrow is heading to North Carolina and South Carolina, and Florida and Georgia the next day.
Oh my God, there's
See
Tim
the
Walz.
vice
Here we go,
presidential
Tim.
candidates there. Tim Walz standing a lone man behind his lectern. Ed, give us your last thoughts as we
Where's the
watch here
the couch
as,
fucker?
JD Vance is off in the wings for the moment. Oh, there he is.
It's performance. That seems obvious, but no faux pas, and they're looking for a viral moment. That's what they'll be looking for tonight.
No handshake.
No handshake, and there you have Governor Walz appears to be taking some notes. JD Vance doing the same as our colleagues.
Kamala went to go give Trump a handshake and he denied it. I wouldn't shake his hand either.
Well, we have the
Fuck
vice
that.
presidential debate coming up in a moment. It will be
I wouldn't want to
moderated by
fuck
our
him. I wouldn't want to fucking shake his couch
Ohio
fucking
Senator
hands.
JD Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz take
Oh.
the stage. Well, they've taken the stage, so stick with us here and join us also on our streaming channel, CBS News 24/7, for exclusive content you won't see.
No, literally, you don't know where
anywhere
that
else.
weirdo's hand's
Thank
been.
you for joining us.
Up a couch's cushions. Fuck that. That couch fucker. Ugh, makes a skin crawl like a turkey slut. Literally in the couch cushions, doing God knows fucking what. Low life loser scumbag. Here we go, ladies. Oh my good God. This is going to be... This is history, guys. Isn't that weird to think about? It really is. I love politics. That's why I like politics so much, because it literally is history.
Tonight, with just over a month to go until Election Day, the first and only meeting between the two men who hope to become vice president
Of the United States. I watched a video earlier showing where the vice president lives. It's a very pretty house. Very beautiful
This
house.
is likely the final debate of this election cycle, and voting is already underway in 20 states. CBS News polling shows this remains a race either presidential candidate could win. The CBS News vice presidential debate.
It's so scary how close it is.
Single vote, and we're going to take this country back.
And we are ready to continue to build the future together.
We're going to turn this whole country red with President Donald J. Trump's leadership.
You know what's at the end of this little journey? Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
This is a CBS
We could
News
only
special,
fucking dream.
live from CBS News
We
headquarters
turn the
in
whole
New
country
York.
red? Who would
America
say
decides
something like that?
The vice presidential
I mean, just
debate.
think about that. That's crazy. I know they mean Republican,
Thank you
but
for
ew.
joining us for tonight's CBS News vice presidential debate.
Oh.
We want to welcome our viewers on CBS, on other networks
Weird.
here in the U.S. and around the world. We have a consequential night ahead, and our focus is the issues that matter to you, the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator
Class
JD
and
Vance.
intelligence.
Tonight,
The couch
meeting for
fucker.
the first time.
Hands in the cushion couch fucker.
I'm Margaret.
Oh, I would
Bowman.
not
In
shake his
order to
hand.
have a
They did
thoughtful
shake
and
hands though.
civil
That's
debate,
cute.
These are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute
Black
to
Queen.
make further points, with an
How are you,
additional
babe?
1 minute each at the discretion of the moderator. The primary role of the moderators is to facilitate the debate between the candidates, enforce the rules, and provide the candidates with the opportunity to fact-check claims made by each other.
CBS News reserves the right
I thought
to
they
mute
weren't
the
going
candidates'
to
microphones to
fact
maintain
check.
decorum. We have not shared the questions or topics with the campaigns.
Who
the
knows
stage is
what's gonna
set.
happen?
Governor, Senator, thank you for joining us. Let's get started. Tonight, our country
Governor
is facing
Walz.
several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of
JD Vance said it himself.
We've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see
I love that
Donald
he does
Trump
have mascara
turn
on.
towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit, because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight,
No, literally, just ignoring the question.
that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies and, God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump.
JD Vance doesn't even know what to say.
Did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal.
Why?
He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about
he left the nuclear deal, you dumb fuck.
Led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora?
Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable,
Skips over
unspeakable human
climate change,
tragedy.
goes
I just
right
saw
to the
today
hurricane.
actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover. But we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So
he's just when he speaks, it's just peaceful.
To continue to move forward. That climate change is real.
Am I wrong in saying that? Holy fuck!
Absolutely critical. But this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense.
It's just so nice to listen to.
Thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years. Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing worse by the climate.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil. But the folks know, and like I said again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our #1 export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris
I
has
love
been able
these
to
taking
do in
notes too,
Minnesota,
Deanna. Just
we're starting
class.
to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that, and an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things, regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It
And what
was
did Trump
crafted
do?
by
And what did Trump do?
conservative senator from
Motherfucking
Oklahoma,
scumbag.
James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents. Detection for drugs. DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch.
Scumbag.
So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their
Fucking
children,
scumbags.
even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Lankford.
They're literally being sued, Trump and Vance, for felonies.
Let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue.
I love
the
it.
consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding.
The JD Vance never answered the question whether or not he would deport children or separate them from their families.
Solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar, Kamala Harris, has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue
and Trump told everyone to vote against it,
of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything.
Fucking
on housing,
scum.
we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well,
Nora?
but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the
debate,
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process.
Thank you for describing the legal process.
On the book since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
Thank you, Margaret.
I only heard JD Vance continuing to talk after his mic was muted.
Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you a house.
Please, let me get a home.
Just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by a third. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this, he kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, he said, you're rich as hell, I'm gonna give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you.
Like
Where are we
how?
going? Kamala
20%
Harris has said
tax
to do the
increase?
things
What
she
would that
wants
do to
to
price of everything,
We'll
you
just
dumb
ask
fucks?
the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best, more people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator,
Come on, America. Wake the fuck up.
School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do.
He just
and
ignores
some of
the
it,
question.
I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense, and they don't have wisdom. Because
What power do you think she has, dumb fuck?
Delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one, whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there,
Donald Trump.
Teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years? And the last year as president.
15 years.
There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong.
I love that he just
about it.
ignores the fact that Donald Trump hasn't paid federal tax in 15 years.
And the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore.
Is it a little loud? Probably just a little, huh?
We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over. And we
it's
saw
not
people
too loud.
profit.
Okay, let me turn it up then.
Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a
show
gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get
Does
back
a small
to
loan of
America
$1
that's
million
affordable again.
know what
We
that's
just
like?
gotta
I
get
wonder.
back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on health care then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989.
So sorry too, Deanna.
But Minnesota Public Radio
fucked
and
up.
other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy? Your 2 minutes.
Well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would
What a
take
good
dancers,
guy,
and we would go
dude.
back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot, I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community.
He really
and then
is,
it's putting
Deanna.
yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is.
He really
My
is.
commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you,
Like
Governor.
grilling him, I'm misspeaking.
Senator Vance,
you little
in
weird
2016, you called your running
You
mate
pink
Donald
cunt.
Trump unfit for the nation's highest office. And you said he could be America's Hitler.
And he slept with Hitler's book next to his bed. What is that?
Explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020.
Can we
But
talk
the
about
Washington
that? Donald
Post
Trump
reported
slept
new
with
messages last
Hitler's
week
book
in which
next
you
to his
also
bed.
disparaged Trump's economic
What?
record while he was president.
No,
Writing
why
this
is that
summer in
not something everyone
2020, quote,
knows?
Trump
Mein
thoroughly
Kampf slept with
failed
it
to
next to his
deliver his
bed.
economic populism.
What?
You're now his running
Ugh.
mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear?
How is that not
You have 2
common
minutes.
knowledge that Trump
Well,
slept
first of
with
all,
Hitler's
Margaret, because
book
I've
next
always
to his
been open.
bed?
And
Seriously.
sometimes, of course,
That's
I've disagreed
crazy.
with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about
How does
Donald
nobody
Trump.
talk about that?
I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure
Literally,
southern
J.D.
border,
Vance
a lot
called
of things,
Trump
frankly, that I didn't
America's
think he'd be able
Hitler,
to
and now
deliver
he's his
on.
vice
And yeah, when you
presidential
screw
nominee.
up, when you misspeak, when you get
Fucking
something
hilarious.
wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where
Trump's
I come
not
down on the
actually
issues and what
America's
changed. Now,
Hitler. He's a
you
great
pointed out
guy.
the messages from
Fucking
2020.
dumb fuck.
Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped
Specific
and impregnated by her
examples.
stepfather.
I love it.
Those are
fucking
horrific.
sick.
Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship.
Her name?
And I think
Hello?
that what I take from that as a Republican
Humanity?
who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that
I mean,
my
maybe he doesn't
party,
want to
we've
tell
got
her
to do
name.
so much
that's
better
valid.
of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I
Isn't
want
that
us as a
horrifying of her?
Republican
It's
Party
fucking sick.
to be pro-family
Disgusting.
in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today.
Fucking
That's
sick.
why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Scumbag.
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making child care more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it
teach
we're a
sexual
top 3
health,
state
not abstinence, you
for
dumb
the best
fuck.
place to raise children.
Oh.
But these two things to try and say
God, I love
that
Tim
we're
Walz.
pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator?
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals. They get early childhood education.
Exactly. Give the support to young mothers.
We're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
What is spineless, weird fuck? He's a pussy. He's scared. He's like, well, I'm not doing too good, am I, little bitch? Mascara on his eyes, that weird fuck. The funniest part is he has to continuously wear it because we've all seen his eyes. Otherwise, they'll say, oh, it's just weird.
On our places, bright
Freak.
shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be
I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about
Park
the debate.
City is a place
I'm not sure how it's going.
You can ski and ride through an
I think Tim Walz is doing well, but
then dine inside one.
I don't know. I was kind of hoping it would be a slam dunk, like just.
But everyone's
Oh, girl,
a winner at
I'm
Opry.
so sorry. Call me a sicko. I don't care.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee.
Yeah, I
with
don't
my
care
two
about
good
their
friends,
YouTube
and we
ads.
talk
Sorry,
about the
girl.
world.
Your morning routine.
We'll watch
just
these
got
ads because we have no
better.
choice.
CBS
but,
Mornings, weekdays at 7.
but still.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Yeah, Deanna, WIC, all these other things, those help mothers. And like Tim Walz said, increasing funding on programs like WIC for mothers and stuff. That's what you do.
Did you ever have these problems
Alongside allowing women to have health care and access to abortion.
There's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many
Like,
people
holy fuck.
feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
What is happening?
A hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else.
A piss break for Tim and a mascara retouch for JD. Yeah, that couch fucker.
This case.
It's like a screenplay.
Oh, I would love to slap Vance in the face. I mean, I wouldn't really. I wouldn't want to touch him. He's a freak.
Human remains found this week.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
There's no physical evidence. The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
He's a little pussy.
There's some questions that have to be asked.
How do you go from calling Donald Trump America's Hitler to being his vice presidential nominee? What?
48 hours.
How?
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
And guys, again, Trump slept with Hitler's novel Mein Kampf next to his bed. How is nobody talking about that? How is that not the end? How is that not the end? Hitler?
The best part of fame is
What?
making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
What?
Every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
If it was anyone else, that would have been the end. How is that possible? It makes my fucking skin crawl.
Everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Oh my god, they're in space.
The thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents.
Oh my god, Elon wants to go to Mars, I know that.
Make you look before
Wow.
you launch.
If you have 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS
Space
News
tourism? Oh my god, for $784 billion.
Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia.
This is so weird.
I will if you will. You go, gal.
Kim, can we please leave you on,
the
please?
Supreme Court, and she's determined she won't be the last.
My parents had raised me to believe that I could do anything I wanted to do.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson on Person to Person.
Superstar approaching, superstar approaching. I can see clearly now.
Has this been 4 minutes of ads? What is this?
That's right.
Look at this
What
outfit.
is going
Give me
on?
some love, baby.
Up top.
Also, I'm sorry I'm eating Cheez-Its, guys. I'm a fatty. I've had nothing to eat all day. Forgive me. Hello,
Welcome back to the
Deanna.
CBS News Vice
Another good
Presidential
sub to
debate.
Laurie
We want to
Strode.
turn now to America's
I love
gun
you.
violence epidemic. The
Thank you so
leading
much, babe.
cause of death for
Thank you,
children
thank you,
and
thank you.
teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to
What
make those
fucking
decisions. I think in some
scumbag.
cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father
Thank you again,
of
Deanna. I
3
love you,
beautiful
babe.
little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to
Means so
school
much
with
to me.
such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually
Terrible
probably agree
stuff.
that we need to do better on this. The question is just how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today
Why did you vote down the
than it
fucking
was
border
2.5
bill, you
years
dumb
ago.
fucks?
But
What?
what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is,
Thank
and
you,
I say
Adrian.
this not loving the
Hello.
answer, because I don't want my
Thank
kids
you.
to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can
Make the
magically
doors
wave a
and
wand and
windows
take guns
stronger.
out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions.
He wants
for
to
how do that.
arm teachers.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun
They don't have to
ownership
have
rate in the
gun
country.
fucking
There are
shooting
reasonable things that
tests
we can do to make
and
a
drills,
difference.
which
It's
I had to do
not
as a kid.
infringing
Fucking
on your
gross.
Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. And I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse, or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get
Nobody
to the root
talks
causes
about
of,
it.
because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can
who
do
doesn't
here,
want that?
but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one.
What a great fucking guy,
where the
man.
most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the
So
issues.
fucking sad, man.
making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns, and there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Exactly.
Thank you, Nora.
Holy fuck.
Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and
my dream, guys, my dream.
They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you
my
listening
dream.
On this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as
I
another
pray
commodity.
she
It
gets
can be
elected,
bought up,
dude. Holy
it can
fuck.
be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the Vice President is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates.
Isn't that so sad
we've
of
seen
her?
a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money.
Benefit the
and
economy.
That's the thing that I think we should be
Benefit
able
the
to
country.
find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up.
And
Senator
Kamala
Vance,
has
on,
plans
as far
to
as your
build
campaign's
homes.
Position, the promise
Holy
is to
fuck.
seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with
Pass the
Americans
bill
for
to
scarce
get
homes
Border
is one of those
Patrol, then
most
you dumb
significant
fuck.
drivers of
Oh.
home prices in the country. It's why we have
Then why'd you vote
massive
against the bill?
increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with, but the most important
He
thing
can't
here
even
is
acknowledge the
Kamala
bill 'cause
Harris
he
is
knows
not
it should have
running
been
as
passed.
a newcomer to politics.
What
She
a
is the
fucking
sitting vice president.
scumbag.
If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens if you lower energy prices? As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens.
Yeah,
not,
Laurie
by the
Strode,
way,
he's the
just
dumb
in
fuck.
housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where, Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where
Can
do
I
you
have
seize
it?
the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national parks.
Can
They're
I
not
have
being
it?
used,
That
and
was
they could be
hilarious.
places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not
migrants
true. And again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's, again, blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us.
20%.
But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor,
Where's
your
the study?
time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration
Hello, Edmund.
that makes
How are
it harder
you?
to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell.
Thank God.
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
He can't.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot
I'm
of my
that.
family
Brain
members
cancer.
have gotten health care
That's
I
me.
believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump
doesn't
actually
have
president,
any
and again, he has a
plan,
record
dude.
to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs.
What
And we
a
talked about,
spineless couch
the
fucker.
reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it
Yeah, Kim, that's a
Obamacare,
great point.
which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But
Who would?
when
Who would?
Obamacare
Who?
was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do, but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris,
Literally, Laurie,
more people
literally.
are covered than they have
Creepy.
before. Those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also
know his
want to make the
armpits
health insurance
smell. They
marketplace
smell bad,
function
for
a little
sure.
bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher. And he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then
so
what
you
happens
think the individual mandate's a good idea?
You shrink. I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
Can I address that?
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss.
You little bitch.
Let's talk about families in America.
That spineless twig.
There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you've said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue, those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. but being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company, but the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare because, look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
I think.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator
Or that
Vance,
he did not answer
many
the
things
question
about the
he was
American
asked at
family.
all.
The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on childcare as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
But if that's true, I agree with that.
Solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care.
This doesn't even
options.
answer the question.
And
What
we're
a
going to have to,
scumbag.
unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families, because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarship types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less.
I love you.
So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not here. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal.
Psycho.
Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look,
wow,
what President Trump
shocking.
has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country.
Yep,
but
another non-answer.
It's not the threat
This
to democracy
weirdo.
that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying
Also, Kim, that cat's
rather than
adorable.
debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day, some with the American flag. Several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police.
Sick.
That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret?
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump
ignores
and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah, well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
This is crazy. I was kind of hoping there'd be a viral, like, couch fucker moment. There wasn't, but that's okay. It's still really interesting to see the contrast between class and weirdness. That is true. In my opinion, at least. Haha. But I will say I was absolutely hoping there'd be a little like a viral moment. There wasn't, but that's okay.
Somewhere to stay, and we, the house owners, get
Oh my God, they're gay. We love a gay. We love gays. Hello, Guy and Andrew.
Giving something and we're both getting something. I can't see any downside. To be honest with you, it's mutually beneficial. Everybody wins.
It's very fun. There's this guy that keeps calling me at my call center job, and his last name is Gay, and he keeps going gay, like gay boy. And it makes me laugh my ass off every time I pick up his call. He's called like 8 times, and he always says gay, like gay boy. It really makes me laugh. It's really absurd. I don't know why. Out of like, there's like 100 people that could pick up his call. Every time I'm the one that picks it up, and I don't know why. It's really weird. It is so weird. But it honestly is very funny. Yeah, it is very funny. No, the moderators need to ask about the Hitler statement. Please ask that. He literally said he was America's Hitler. What? And now he's his vice presidential nominee? How? Why would you want to be Hitler's nominee, you fucking lunatic? Trump slept with Hitler's novel Mein Kampf next to his bed. What? How was that not the end of this? If it doesn't disgust you, I don't fucking know what could, dude. It makes my skin crawl. Makes me gag. It's fucking disgusting. Ugh. Repulsive, nasty, creepy, weird. Foul and freaky. This is gross. This is very gross.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be and brighten your day?
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Ew. Haha.
The thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, would have a public crisis.
Space
1 out of 100. Space tourism. That's Elon's future. Very scary. Very scary.
On the Supreme Court, and she's determined she won't be the last.
My parents had raised me to believe that I could do anything I wanted to do.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Isn't that so scary, Avar? It's so fucking horrifying. I tried investigating when I'm gonna get my mail-in ballot thing. Apparently you don't get it until 20 days before like normal voting, which is really weird. I honestly thought I got it a lot earlier when I voted for Joe Biden the last time, but who the fuck knows? The good news is every registered person in Nevada gets a mail-in ballot no matter what. You don't have to you don't have to do any extra registration or whatever. Thank God. I couldn't remember if you needed to. Thank God you don't. I looked it up today. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God.
All right.
Welcome back to the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. It is now time for the closing statements. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look,
Haha. Dancing with their stars.
It matters that
Does it matter a red or blue state? It's a purple state.
anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris,
Yeah, which is why it's important.
Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you,
I turned it down too much. I'm a dumb
that
fuck.
better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself.
We gotta
Now,
vote
look,
blue,
we
Lori.
all
It's so
know
scary.
who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you.
Thanks,
Senator
Bob.
Vance, your closing
Beautiful.
statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your
I love that he
communities
says
flooded
Kamala
with
Harris's
fentanyl.
policies.
And that too
She's
has
the
gotten
vice
harder with
president.
Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies.
She's the vice
Now, I've been
president.
in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
Vance is a little bitch. Dear God, for the love of fuck, please don't let Donald Trump get reelected.
The first and only vice presidential debate. This election is now complete. It was a cordial debate of the kind that people mostly say they want. You notice here the two candidates lingering on the stage. That's quite a difference from the presidential debate, in which it was not even sure that Vice President Harris and Donald Trump would shake hands. It was a debate in which the line, "I appreciate what Tim said about Finland," was one of the many ways in which
Kamala
Senator
tried to
Vance
shake
agreed with
Trumpty
the governor.
Dumpty's
The governor
hand, that
agreed
orange
right back.
fuck.
But that's the tone and the kind of theater review of this. I'll pick out two issues. On the question of the top of the news today, which is the Middle East and the kinds of foreign policy surprises that hit any president. Tim Walz made the case that Donald Trump's temperament is unfit for any kind of surprise, cited the members of the Trump administration who have attested to that. Vance came back and said there were no wars during the Trump administration. On the economy, I'll make a political point, which is that what Vance did was something Donald Trump was incapable of doing during his presidential debate, which is repeatedly saying, if Kamala Harris was going to do these things, why didn't she in office? Now, whether voters buy that or not, Tim Walz mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act and a variety of other items under Biden. But returning to that political point, has worked in the past for Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. We'll see if it works this time. I'd like to make a final point on tone. The J.D. Vance on that stage was very different than what people may have seen in podcasts. But then there was an air of unreality about it. He talked about bipartisan solutions with nuance
Trump is classless. That
of a kind we never saw during the Trump administration. He talked about Donald Trump almost as the defender of the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump tried to kill the Affordable Care Act. And then I think at the very end of the debate, we saw something extraordinary. Tim Walz asked J.D. Vance if Donald Trump lost the election. He was incapable of answering that simple yes-no question. J.D. Vance can only get so far from the man at the top of the ticket, and that was on display in that one moment, although J.D. Vance was a different kind of person than we've seen in many instances.
John, I think what you're saying
couldn't
is
even
so
say that he
important
lost.
when we talk about demeanor because of the expectation that was hanging over these candidates heading into tonight. J.D. Vance came to the stage with the lowest likability rating of all four candidates at the top of the ticket. And I think many people came in expecting him to be Donald Trump's attack dog tonight. That's not the side we saw from him. There was
I was kind of hoping he would be. I kind of wanted him to be nasty.
You mentioned the word cordiality. We saw that from him very much. I also think it's worth pointing out the demeanor we saw from Governor Walz, particularly when it came to his moments where he was put on the defensive about his own biography and embellishments that he has made in the past, particularly in this case on China. You and I have talked about this a lot coming into this evening. Major, you're going
to help us with
this
debate to YouTube, guys? I don't know if I should or not.
Few minutes, but
what do you think?
There was a big one that we need to talk about at the top of it, which came on immigration in the discussion tonight, and particularly the Trump administration's plan, a major centerpiece of their campaign to undergo mass deportations for undocumented immigrants in this country. J.D. Vance particularly said that migrants will be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. This was in the conversation, this ongoing conversation about Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio. Many of them are recipients of temporary legal status, and we just have to say, John, that they are in this country legally.
All right, we will be right back in a moment with more coverage of the vice presidential debate, and we'll fact check some of the claims made by both candidates.
Do we keep watching? What do you guys think? Part of me is curious. How pathetic is it they couldn't fact check them during the debate because Donald Trump's a little bitch? Oh, makes your skin crawl.
On our places, bright shiny faces.
Personally, Donald Trump was given $8 million personally by China. And do you know why that is? It's because Donald Trump favors dictators. He favors... Oh, he's such a scary fuck. If it doesn't make your skin crawl, I don't know what could. I'm also fairly certain that a lot of his businesses were also like hotel rooms, like 500 hotel rooms, like were just randomly like bought by countries, and it's like, but like nobody stayed in any of the rooms, and it's like, what? I wonder why. You know why? Because he profited off his presidency. That's why he said, I'm not gonna take a single dollar. I'm not gonna take a, what do they call that? I'm not gonna have a, I'm not gonna, $250. He denied that as president. He said, give it to, he didn't even say give it to anyone. He just didn't take it. But he profited off the presidency. Fucking disgusting. Nasty, 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 weird fuck. It just makes me sick. It's only 8 more minutes. Why not? Yeah, we'll watch it. We'll watch the roundup. I will say though, I am just very nervous. I'm just very, very nervous for this election because I don't think anyone that like is not like involved in politics like I am, like watching everything that of our, like you and me are watching, keeping up with, reading about. I think people that don't do that, I just don't think they care. And I'm like, you guys don't understand what's on the line. Donald Trump almost took over the country. And the Supreme Court says that like he would be immune from the law. That's fucking crazy. That's insane. And it just makes me sick. And I'm so afraid for the future. So afraid. Hopeful but scared. Hopeful but scared. Very, 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 very scared. It's just confusing. It's been reported that Trump has syphilis. Trump has syphilis? Like the STD? What? That's fucking hilarious. Yeah, I still can't get over that TikTok of me finding the Trump slippers. That was there's like a homeless person was using the Trump hotel slippers in Vegas. I still think that was the funniest TikTok I've ever. I was just so shocking. I was actually genuinely shocked. And it's also a little hilarious.
All right, we are going to bring in our amazing political team here. Major, I want to start with you and your big thoughts as you watch these 90 minutes unfold.
I would call this
He
the
does,
Warren
Laurie
G.
Strode.
Harding
He
Memorial
does.
Vice Presidential Debate. In 1920, Warren G. Harding promised the country a return to normalcy. That's what this debate was. It was substantive, far more substantive on the facts and policy than the leading candidates, the presidential nominees, have been to date. It was, in a way, a kind of embrace of bipartisanship on tough issues. Gun violence,
Please don't say
healthcare,
presidential
childcare,
candidates. Just say Donald Trump.
Even, well, this is
Oh.
less true, on reproductive rights. And one thing that I think will be a surprise to anyone in the Republican Party, the biggest secret of the entire Trump administration is that he saved Obamacare. It's a big secret because he never even said that. But this debate was an example to the country of how you can disagree agreeably, how you can talk about shared goals for the country. And in that sense, I think it's extremely important for J.D. Vance that he did not sound as he sounds on the stump. It was his biography and his appeal to bipartisanship that will be most distinguishing about not only his present, but his possible future.
Nancy, your thoughts?
I think if you took a shot every time you heard the words "I agree" tonight, you'd be under the table right now.
You'd be under the
This was
table.
a surprisingly affable debate for two men who we know from our reporting do not like each other. They said that they agreed on housing policy. They said that they agreed on some aspects of immigration policy, on pro-family policy. They were clearly intent on showing that they are likable, that they are agreeable for all the reasons, Cecilia, that you laid out earlier. The Democrats that I'm talking to feel fine about the debate. They're not doing cartwheels the way they were after the Harris and Trump debate a few weeks ago, but they think that this
I was
went well
hoping
for
to
them,
do
and I
cartwheels.
predict that exchange between Vance and Walz about whether Donald Trump lost the election is going to end up in a Harris ad by the end of the week.
Bob?
Oh, for
Both
sure.
of these
Couldn't even
contenders
say
came
it.
to the stage tonight
Couldn't even
being
admit
favorites
it.
of the base in their respective parties. Governor Walz was someone who went on television and called Republicans weird. Senator J.D. Vance was someone who would go on podcasts with Donald Trump Jr. and other favorites of the right and say the left was essentially weird. Tonight on stage, you didn't hear a lot about that. You heard an approach to build on our colleagues' reporting and analysis here. It was about appealing to the middle. For J.D. Vance, giving reassurance to traditional Republicans, conservatives, that they have a place in this Republican Party, even with former President Trump. They might not like those traditional Republicans' his answer on the election, but they might like his answer on the economy and on border security. And for Governor Walz, it wasn't about being an attack dog. It was trying to make an overture to that centrist voter in a battleground state and say, hey, with Vice President Harris as a teacher and a coach.
Ed Gordon, quickly
Yeah.
before we wrap, one of the big issues, though, was immigration, so much so that they had to shut the mics off at one
Yeah, but I think the civility that we saw tonight may be a mistake by Democrats, quite frankly. I talked at the outset of energizing this base. I was just in Ohio, and many Democrats were livid about what's going on in Springfield. I think Walz missed an opportunity to really push the racial insensitivity there. There was a sense of trying to be affable, as John said. And I think what we're going to see from this point on is the civility being laid aside. And as we've said, from this point on, gloves are off, I think.
Major, you've spent a lot of time thinking about Donald Trump. How might he react to his number two?
So what Donald Trump will take away is the first third of the debate, where J.D. Vance made a very strong case that the Trump record on was the world on fire, yes or no? No, it wasn't. Was the economy better? Yes, it was. Trump will be very happy with that. I think he will largely ignore and forget all the bipartisan appeals because they don't really fit within his orientation to politics.
Thank you, Major. There is much more to talk about. Our coverage will continue with instant reaction polls and fact checks. That'll be on CBS News 24/7. But for now, for all of my colleagues here...
His makeup was dripping off him. Why is that the funniest thing I ever heard? I don't know, guys. It went okay. I feel good. I feel like J.D. Vance was not as much of a little bitch boy as I was hoping he'd be. I was really hoping he would be weird. Because he normally is weird. I mean, how do you say that Trump is America's Hitler? Know that Trump slept with Hitler's novel next to his bed, as you say that, and then decide to be his vice presidential nominee? What? It just doesn't make sense to me that someone that says this is dictator on day one, that slept with Hitler's novel next to his bed, is even possibly running for president after trying to overthrow the election, after being an adjudicated rapist, after being convicted of 34 felonies. How the fuck is that possible? And enough people, they're not gonna vote. I swear, and I'm so nervous for election day, and I really hope everyone in the shout is gonna vote for
This
Kamala.
is a reminder. Water your damn plants.
Alexa, thank you. She's right. I do need to do that.
Anytime. Literally. Hope you had a good Tuesday.
Aw, I did.
This is a reminder. Water your damn plants.
I do need to do that. Oh, here, they're back.
The first and only vice presidential debate between Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance. I'm John Dickerson in Times Square.
J.D. pantsless in a couch Vance.
Vega, and I am here. We are here with the very best political team in the business. We want to bring our panel back because we are joined by Chief Washington Correspondent Major Garrett, Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa, Chief White House Correspondent Nancy Cortez, and CBS News contributor Ed Gordon. Major, let's start with you. I was struck by seeing Governor Walz pressed on his biographical embellishments. No surprise that came up, this question of where he was in college in China, whether he was there, whether he really wasn't. He sort of said, hey, I'm a knucklehead at times, that I misspoke. Is that going to fly?
It's flown in Minnesota, which was his point. People who know me best heard me make this knuckleheaded remark, and they elected me to Congress or governor. They've gotten along with it. America, you should too. And he didn't say this, but I think many Democrats, if they feel they need to clean this up in any way, will say Tim Walz will never lose an embellishment battle to Donald Trump.
Haha.
Nancy, I was struck by something.
Oh, he absolutely does, Avar. It's terrifying.
In the reproductive rights.
So scary.
He said on abortion, after hearing about the various consequences of the Roe v. Wade being overturned, he then at one point said there are a lot of people that should be alive. I wonder if that is going to be something that we might see in Harris. In other words, well, yes, the consequences of Roe v. Wade being overturned are not great, and then he tried to move on. But isn't that the point?
Yes, and I think that another challenge for him was that he tried to make the case. He acknowledged that this is a difficult issue for his party, but what he described as the way out of that difficult situation was to say, well, we need to be more pro-family as a party. We need to make it easier for women to have children so that they don't feel like they need to have an abortion. The challenge is that more than half of the country believes that women should have the right to an abortion. And I don't think it's clear that the people who believe that are going to be swayed by, policies that are simply more pro-family.
Bob, what lasts here beyond the end of our conversation in terms of the man at the top of the ticket and the woman at the top of the other ticket?
For Senator Vance, he keeps his relationship with former President Donald Trump, didn't make any major mistakes that would draw Trump's ire. I was tracking Trump's social media all night, positive about Senator Vance. And for Governor Walz, he remains that person who Vice President Harris can count on to go to battleground states and elsewhere and have a convincing personal story about being someone who was a teacher and a coach and comes from an everyday existence in Minnesota, ultimately became a House member and a governor, but came out of the education ranks and served his country in uniform.
We want to go now to Ed O'Keefe, who is there at the debate site. Ed, we just heard from our friend Bob Costa here saying that he's been monitoring President Trump and all signs a go, positive reaction. What are you hearing from the Harris-Walz campaign right now after this?
Cecilia, we're in the spin room here just down the hall from where the debate played out in the CBS Broadcast Center. This used to be a milk processing plant, and it does.
Girl, I don't give a fuck about your dairy history. What?
As Senator Vance is now in here, as other surrogates to the two campaigns are now here making their case.
What is this dairy history recap? What is going on?
I think he did rather well up against Senator Vance in a few different key moments. One, quoting scripture at that one point during the conversation about immigrants, talking about Matthew 25, the idea that there should be empathy for all people. They say that in their internal measurements of the actual debate, that viewers that were watching liked that scene. The other part that they thought worked pretty well and that voters watching with them or that they were tracking enjoyed was the criticism of the Trump tax cuts for wealthier Americans. But they say, and Nancy was making this point earlier, that final exchange regarding the future of democracy on January 6th was most damning. They say that exchange and Vance's refusal to say who exactly won the election, the fact that he dodged questions about it, is something that they will seize on in the coming days as a reminder to skeptics, to those concerned about Trump, that once again, it appears they may be preparing to question the results of the election and stoke concerns about it. Beyond that, there were, at the beginning at least, concerns among Democrats more broadly about how the governor sort of stumbled out of the gates a bit, especially uneasy on those questions about Mideast policy and what exactly the United States should do in terms of Israel's response to Iran. Some conceding perhaps he, like Senator Vance, should be doing more interviews perhaps out on the trail. In the coming days, remember, Governor Walz is headed to central Pennsylvania to campaign. He was supposed to do that with Vice President Harris, who instead will be staying back in Washington and attending to official duties in the coming days. She'll be visiting storm damage in Georgia, and then we anticipate over the weekend heading to North Carolina. So they will not be seen together on the trail as we thought they might, so that she can attend to official duties and he'll continue
being the vice president. Wow, classy. I love her.
We're hoping to win over support tonight.
Even with how important it is to win
Caitlin
Pennsylvania.
Barnes is
Wow.
also at the CBS News Broadcast Center. Caitlin, what are you hearing from the Trump-Vance camp?
Well, the Trump campaign is essentially doing a victory lap. Quite literally, they were eager to come into this spin room and talk to reporters, senior advisors, campaign manager, and Donald Trump Jr., who, of course, is very close with J.D. Vance and was influential in that decision to name him as VP. But notably, I was talking to a campaign source who was heavily involved in this preparation, and they noted that there was, in the prep, a kind of conscious effort to focus on J.D. Vance's personal side, knowing that this was going to be an introduction of sorts to millions of Americans.
They didn't talk about their
watching.
military service, which I thought was weird.
Going back to when J.D. Vance was announced as the running mate, remember, he was told 20 minutes before this was announced that he would be the running mate. Then they had the convention, and the focus was very much on the top of the ticket and Donald Trump. And then came these interviews that were discovered that J.D. Vance had done, these controversial statements that he had made in podcast interviews and kind of other forums. They see this as a kind of a reset, but mostly to focus personal stories
calling Trump
on the
America's
economy,
Hitler,
which they believe is a deciding factor in this election.
All right, Caitlin, thank you so much.
He doesn't read anything of ours. It's embarrassing. Not even the teleprompter.
Fact-checking them on the fly and in real time. Major, you're going to start with opioid deaths.
That's right. And I just want to let everyone know, the CBS News Confirmed team has done an entire fact check of the entire debate. You can find those fact checks on social media, CBS News, or on our website, CBS News Confirmed team. I'm going to summarize 3 of them because they all touch on immigration, which was heavily debated in this process tonight, and the issues all run through, one way or another, the conversation, national and otherwise, about immigration. Let's start with the first one, dealing with opioid deaths. It came up in the context of immigration. The claim, this was from Governor Walz. Opioid crisis, the good news is in the last 12 months, the nation saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio. The CBS News Confirmed team rates that partially true, and here's why. Our country's only been counting opioid deaths officially since 2015, and in 2024, our nation recorded, sadly, more than 77,000 opioid deaths. That was down 7% from the year before.
How is that
About
possible?
3,000 deaths in 2024, slightly larger than that in Ohio. That was not a 30% decrease. That was an 18% decrease. That's why the CBS News Confirmed team rates that assertion as partially true. Let's go to the next one. And this one has been chewed over extensively in the campaign. J.D. Vance, Republican from Ohio, said Vice President Harris became the appointed border czar. This could be a semantic issue for some people. We rate it, the CBS News confirmed team, as false, and here is why. That was never Kamala Harris's title. That was never her designated role. Immigration policy flowed through the president and the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. What Kamala Harris was appointed to do or asked to do was look at the root causes of immigration in the so-called Northern Triangle countries, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. That's why we rate that as false. Let's go to our next one.
The lying
This is something that J.D. Vance said, again in the context of immigration, housing that is totally unaffordable because we have brought millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. CBS News confirmed team rates that as partially true. Clearly, and Senator Vance made reference to a Federal Reserve study that says larger migration to America in the Biden administration is one factor in housing stock shortage. But that was a long-running issue dating back to the Great Recession. Americans have been creating more new home stock at a lower rate than at any time since 1960. It is a complex problem. That's why the CBS News confirmed team rates that assertion from Senator Vance as partially true. John and Cecilia, back to you.
Thank you so much, Major. Republican Senator Tom Cotton joins us. He serves on the Judiciary, Intelligence, and Armed Services Committee. Senator Cotton, good evening. Good to have you with us again. I'd like to ask you a question that your
It's just so
Senator
scary,
had
dude.
trouble
This
with.
is a coin
Did
flip.
Donald
It's
Trump
so
lose the last
scary.
election?
Well, look, obviously Joe Biden's the president. He's in the White House. That's why everything has gone to hell in a handbasket for the last 4 years. But as JD said tonight, he's focused on the future and the future that Donald Trump can restore to America.
He can't even
For
say
4
yes, he
years,
lost.
We had stable prices, rising wages, a secure border, and a peaceful, stable world. And over the last 4 years, because Joe Biden has been president and Kamala Harris has been his vice president, we've had everything going to hell in a handbasket. Donald Trump is going to bring back the good times we had. Kamala
Your
Harris will
good
extend
times.
4 years of Joe Biden's presidency.
I realize that this is about something that's in the past, Senator, but it is something that the Republican nominee for president brings up a lot. And the reason I think it's more than just something that can be dismissed in the past is when you talk to national security officials about domestic violence, they say one of the things that stokes that violence is the idea that the last election was fraudulent and that Donald Trump was the rightful victor. And so this isn't something about the past. It is a kindling of what, according to national security experts, of a present threat of violence. And that's why this is not something that's in the past. Why isn't it easy to just say he lost and now we hope he wins?
Well, first off, John, I don't know who these experts are you're talking about. Tim Walz tonight just like Kamala Harris has said for years, she wants to defer to the so-called experts. These are the experts maybe that told us we should shut down schools or put kids in masks. These are the same experts that told us that Israel should be restrained every time it gets attacked, as opposed to letting Israel win. So I don't know who the so-called experts you're referring to here, but I can tell you the real threat of violence that we see in America today is rampant crime in our streets.
Crime is down, you dumb fuck.
28,000 murderers and rapists who are illegal aliens released into our communities. Or for that matter, turning the other way when our streets are burning, as they were during the BLM riots.
I have to be honest.
Tim Walz being caught.
I can't listen to this insanity, this Trump propaganda bullshit. But guys, thank you for this pencil neck, little dick motherfucker. I can't listen to him. But guys, what a fun little debate. I'm very grateful that Tim Walz did as good as he did. I was hoping it was going to be a wipe the floor situation like it was with the Kamala versus Donald Trump debate. And I really thought it would be because, God, J.D. Vance, that couch fucker, he is a weird person. I was really hoping it would be a wipe the floor situation. It wasn't, but that's okay. Guys, I love you. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you again to Var and Deanna for the donations tonight. The gifted subs, Deanna. I fucking love you. Thank you so much, Deanna. How many subs did you gift? Was it 4 subs or my? Can I ask, guys? We know that I don't have a functional mind. Let me see. It was. I know. Var gifted 100 bits, and Deanna gifted 1, 2, 3. 3 subs. Thank you very much, babe. I love you so much, Deanna. Anavar, thank you very much. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'm going to try to hurry and get this up for YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I fucking love you. What should you do? What should you follow your bitch on Twitch? What does that mean? That means hello. Follow your bitch on Twitch. I was trying to get it to pop up, but I had to click the button. I'm a dummy. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Remember to vote. It is so important that we vote. And I just hope you guys know I love you. Have a good night, Kim. Have a good night, Laurie Strode. Have a good night, Deanna. Have a good night, Avar. Who else is here? Is there anyone else here? Deanna. I love you guys very much. I will see you all very soon. And like I said again, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you again to Avar and Deanna, guys. I love you very much. Yeah, that's what it was. It was 2 subs and a resub. I was like, I know you resubbed, but was it 3 good subs or was it 2? I'm a dummy. I love you guys. I appreciate you. And I'll see you all very soon. I love you so much. Bye, babes. Should I upload this to YouTube also? What do you guys think? Because I want to, but I don't. But I'm like, should I? Part of me thinks I want to because I need to mention that, like, holy fuck, I did not upload a Madonna Monday. I need to mention that because, guys, I have recorded. It would just would have taken me like so long to edit it. And unfortunately, I'm just such a mess. I'm just such a fucking mess. So I'm gonna do that. I just need to. I've been working so much. Like, I literally worked 56 hours last week. I think I'm already at 40 this week, and I still have, oh my god, quite a few days, like 3 days left. I'm stressed. I have a credit card bill coming up. I'm panicking. I'm not gonna have enough money to do it. I'm already in the negative $100 for my fucking rent. It's hard now. I just need to get over this little hurdle. And the best days are coming. I love you guys. I will see you all very soon. Have a good night, Avar. Have a good night, Deanna. Have a good night, Laura Strode. Love you guys. Have a good night, Kim. Love you. Deanna says, will YouTube take it down? They shouldn't. They didn't take the last one down. I uploaded the last one, so I'm probably gonna do it for this one. Deanna, the Trump and Kamala Harris debate, they let me upload that one, so they shouldn't do this one. You know, they shouldn't, at least. Cause let me check. How many views did my last debate reaction get? It only got 400 views, but oh well, 400 views. Hey, 400 views is about as many views as my last vlog, which I think is my funniest video, which breaks my heart. But guys, I love you. I'm probably gonna upload it. I will see you all on the flip side. Thank you. I love you.